Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. To kick things off today, I want you to just think about a really strange paradox we all live with. I mean, look around. We are surrounded by incredible modern comforts, right? We've got climate control, instant communication, food delivered to our front doors with a literal tap of a screen. In so many ways, we control our environment more than any humans in history. But actually, scratch that. Despite all this control, we constantly feel completely at the mercy of the world. A delayed flight, a passive-aggressive email from a boss, maybe just an unexpected rainstorm, and boom, our peace of mind is instantly shattered. We end up feeling stressed out, trapped, and entirely dependent on everything going exactly our way. And that brings us to a really profound question, which is the whole focus of our explainer today. What makes a person truly free? Is it wealth? Power? Is it just having every single thing go according to your meticulously crafted plans? Well, the answer we're going to explore today might actually surprise you, because the ultimate guide to total mental freedom comes from a crippled Roman slave who lived exactly 2,000 years ago. All right, Section 1. Who was Epictetus? So before we dive into the philosophy itself, we really need to understand the guy behind it. We're talking about Epictetus. He was born into slavery in Anatolia, right around 8055. For a chunk of his life, he was owned by a guy named Epictetus, who was this powerful freedman in the famously brutal court of the Emperor Nero. Now, along the way, Epictetus was crippled. Historians think it was likely from old age or maybe rheumatism, though some of the legends out there blame a cruel master. But eventually, against all odds, he gained his freedom and opened up his own school of philosophy. Sounds like a happy ending, right? Well, not quite. In AD 95, he was promptly exiled from Rome by the paranoid Emperor Domitian, so he had to pack up his whole life, move to Greece, and teach there until he finally retired and passed away in obscurity. The point here is, this isn't some modern billionaire or wellness guru telling you to just smile more. Having navigated slavery, physical disability, the treacherous, cutthroat politics of Nero's court, and then sudden exile, Epictetus has the absolute ultimate street credibility when it comes to resilience and dealing with unpredictable adversity.
And you know what the craziest part is? Epictetus never actually wrote a book himself. The discourses and selected writings that we have today are basically live lecture notes. They were transcribed practically word for word by this remarkably diligent student of his named Arrian. Arrian basically just wanted to capture his master's exact thoughts, his frank expressions, exactly as they were spoken in the classroom. So this text isn't a polished theoretical essay. It is a live, gritty, definitive resilience handbook. And it's exactly what we're decoding today.
Moving on to Section 2, the illusion of control. At the very core of his teaching, Epictetus says that you absolutely must ruthlessly separate the world into two buckets. Bucket 1, what is up to us? Bucket 2, what is not up to us? So what's in our power? Only our internal world. That means our choices, our desires, our impulses to act or not act, and our judgments about things. That is literally it. And what's not in our power? Basically the whole rest of the universe. Our bodies, our property, our reputation, the safety of our family, the economy, the weather. Epictetus uses this brilliant, super relatable analogy for this. He says, when the weather keeps us from traveling, we just sit around and fret. And we keep asking, oh, which way is the wind blowing? From the north? Ah, that's no good. When's it going to blow from the west? And his answer to that is, when the wind wants to. God put Aeolus in charge of the winds, not you. By attaching our happiness to things totally outside of our control, we are essentially guaranteeing ourselves a life of frustration and slavery. And you really see this mindset in action in this one exchange from the Discourses. It's essentially a 2,000-year-old mic drop. A tyrant threatens him and says, I will put you in chains. And Epictetus just responds, correction, it is my body you will throw there. So the tyrant gets mad and says, I will behead you. And Epictetus just casually replies, well, when did I ever claim that mine was the only neck that couldn't be severed? As a former slave who legally owned absolutely nothing, he didn't even legally own his own physical body, Epictetus realized that true freedom isn't physical and it's not legal. No one, not an emperor, not a master, not a prison guard, can conquer your will or force you to believe something is bad, as long as you don't consent to it. All right, Section 3, mastering your impressions. So how do we actually pull this off? How do we build this bulletproof mindset in our day-to-day lives? Well, it relies on a process we can call the cognitive pause. And these 4 steps right here are the absolute secret sauce of Epictetus's philosophy. Step 1, an impression hits you. This is anything that comes into your senses. It could be a random thought, a weird feeling, or maybe a super rude comment from a coworker. Your automatic human reflex is just to react, right?
But step 2 is where the magic happens. You actively intercept that impulse, and you say to yourself, hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Then, step 3, you put it to the test, using that exact dichotomy of control we were just talking about. You ask, is this an external thing I have no control over, or an internal choice I can actually manage? And finally, step 4. Based on that test, you either grant it your assent, meaning, yeah, you agree with the thought and you act on it, or you withhold your assent. And by withholding it, you completely strip the event of its power to upset you. Now, this entire process hinges on a Greek concept called proheresis. It's basically our uniquely human faculty of choice. See, animals receive impressions and they just react purely on instinct. A dog sees a bowl of food, it eats it gets scared by a loud noise, it runs away. But because humans possess reason, we have this incredible powerful gap between stimulus and response. We can actually hold off on acting until an impression is fully scrutinized. We aren't forced to just react blindly to our environment like a pinball. And cultivating this proheresis is pretty much the ultimate goal of any true Stoic.
Let's look at section 4, philosophy in action. One thing you gotta know about Epictetus is that he had a deep, deep disdain for what we might call armchair philosophers. You know the type, people who read a ton of books but never actually change how they live their lives. He says, if you're just studying philosophy to sound smart at dinner parties, you are completely wasting your time. The goal is not to parade your learning or memorize a bunch of big fancy words. The goal is to apply these principles to actual daily situations. He literally says that if you are making real progress, you should be actively expunging sighs, sorrow, and exclamations like "poor me" from your vocabulary. True progress is taking your moral principles and applying them directly to real-world adversity, in the exact same way a runner applies the principles of running when they hit the track. You literally have to treat your mind the way an elite athlete treats their body in training. He actually uses this really funny analogy to drive this home. He says, imagine an athlete comes up to him boasting, and Epictetus says, hey, show me your shoulders. And the athlete responds, have a look at my weights. Epictetus just fires back, get out of here with you and your gigantic weights. What I want to see isn't the weights, but how you've profited from using them. It's so true, right? The books you read, the long lectures you listen to, those are just the heavy weights. Nobody cares how many books you have on your shelf. They want to see your philosophical muscles. They want to see how you handle a sudden crisis, or how you deal with getting sick, or how you handle that toxic coworker without completely losing your temper. Virtue absolutely has to be demonstrated in action. Which brings us to section 5, ancient wisdom, modern therapy. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, this is neat, but does this ancient Roman advice actually hold up in the modern 21st century? Well, take a look at this quote. It is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. Years ago, a young psychology student named Albert Ellis read this exact line during his college years, and it struck him profoundly. In fact, this single ancient insight became the absolute bedrock of his entire future career in psychology. So Albert Ellis goes on to create what is called rational emotive behavior therapy, or REBT. And today, REBT is one of the foremost widely used modalities in counseling and therapy. And the parallels here, they aren't just a coincidence. They are literally a direct translation. Under Epictetus' Stoicism, emotional responses come from our judgments. Meanwhile, under modern REBT, emotion is defined as a strongly evaluative kind of thought. Where Epictetus tells us we have to focus on the internal control of our impressions, modern therapy tells us to focus on changing our irrational beliefs. It turns out, this ancient Roman philosophy is essentially the ultimate, timeless mental resilience hack, entirely proven out by modern clinical psychology. The anxiety you feel on a daily basis isn't caused by your boss, or the horrible traffic, or the bad weather. It's caused entirely by the irrational narrative you are telling yourself about those events. And that leaves us with one final Socratic question to really ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Are you going to continue letting the wildly unpredictable outside world dictate your happiness and control you? Or are you finally going to take a step back, use that uniquely human power of choice, and start controlling your judgments? Because as Epictetus proved, through a life of incredible, unimaginable hardship, the very moment you master your own mind, no external force can ever put you in chains again. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.